Hi, I'm Leo. I go by Stefan online, and today in this video we're breaking down my song called Supply and Demand. It's a song I spent a lot of hours on, and initially it was a song for a different artist, but he didn't end up releasing the song that we made, so I ended up jumping on it instead and releasing my own track. It's a bit of a switch up genre-wise, but I want this album that I'm creating called Half Shapes to be different sides of me. And so I like just full-on pop songs, but I also like full-on rap songs, and I want to be able to show off different sides of me musically and emotionally. That's why we've got a different genre here, and yeah, I hope you like it. If you want to listen to it, you can go down in the description. There's a Spotify link there, and have a listen if you want. So yeah, this video is the breakdown. The breakdown was recorded pretty late at night, so I don't have a ton of energy in when I'm breaking it down, but we got the job done. So that's good. All right, so let's jump into the breakdown, shall we? Okay, so we're in the project for Supply and Demand, my new song, and we're gonna go through the session, look at what I've done to make this song. So for this breakdown, I want to start off with this sample. It's called Adventurous Dream. Yeah, and then it actually does one different thing here. So this is initially from a patch in Contact, and when I just bounced it out and chopped it up, it sounded like this. So some clipping, some unwanted frequencies. So what I put on it, so I put some gain on it to kind of control it and boost it in certain parts. Also for some automation, some filter freak to make it louder in some respects. UAD compressor to sort of even out. You could see here that there's a lot of spikes in the audio file. Some multiband to expand those side dynamics. Some side Q to get some certain frequencies. Some Pro Q3 to really cut out a lot of low end and high end. Also cut out those clicks and pops. Imager, reverb, and then you get this instead of this. So yeah, a bit of processing definitely, but worth it in the end. The same sort of harp or whatever you want to call it is in the verse as well, but it's processed differently. So the things that are different, there's no filter freak on it from Soundtoys, so the mix loudener thing isn't on there. There's also a format shift from Kilohertz. It's free, by the way. It's very good. They've got tons of stuff. I recommend them. Yeah, format shifter. Without it, sounds like this. More harsh, not really background friendly for a verse per se. It's the classic like underwater trick that all rappers use. And then just cutting out some of the mids there as well. When I was mixing, there's also a third kind of part to this harp, and this is all the same patch. It's just different melodies played in that patch that I then chopped up and put in different parts and processed differently. Yeah, and so that whole thing sounded like this to begin with. And you can hear the processing messing that up a bit, but that's fine because I didn't use that part anyways. I also, for the second verse, wanted to add something extra on top of it. It's mixed quite far back in the background. And so it's the original one bounced out, but then I've added some more EQ, some little alter boy, which messes it up, but kind of in a good way, and that's why it's in the background. You can hear sort of a lot of robot frequencies and artifacts, but that's okay. It's in the background with some RAM, of course, but I think they sound very good together. Yeah, so that's it for the main sort of melody thing. The whole beat is based around it. It's what started all of it, really. The next thing that I sort of came up with was the bass. So usually I go for the drums right after the main melody, but in this case I just came up with the bass, and I tried to make the bass fit the melody of this sample. Yeah, and so landing on different bass notes to emphasize different chords, even though there aren't really a lot of chordal information except within the synths, but it's really the changing of bass notes in the bass line and what bass notes land on the one that changes your perception of what chord we're on. And then after the bass, that I try to make as funky as possible, I added the drums, but let's go through the bass first. So this is a Nexus patch, 08 sub. I'm sure you've seen me use it before. So without any effects, sounds like this. And in some respects, it sounds much louder, and it's kind of more tame my way. But it fits better in the mix, so that's why I've tamed it a bit. This technique is something called mixing directionally, or centering the low end in the frequency spectrum. So essentially what this does is, you see here at the crossover 130 hertz, that essentially means that at this point 130 hertz, from this point onward below, the frequencies are all mono. They're not stereo anymore, which grounds it, and all the frequencies above 130 hertz are stereo, and they're spread on this thing here. You can see the spread here is 0 and the spread here is 136. And that's a cool way to get some low-end heavy punch in your bass. Here I've got a transient shaper from Kilohertz as well. Basically add some punch to the initial transient. So without it, and with it. A bit subtle because I didn't want to crank it all the way, but it's there. It does its job. Compression, more compression to even everything out and bring it forth in the mix. Some EQ cutting out a lot of high end and some low end for the kick to shine through, and then a sidechain compression linked to my kick. This bass is a sampling of this bass down here. So that 808 I dragged into the sampler and processed it differently for the chorus, and it sounds like this. It's basically the same thing, processed a little differently, and you've got a transient shaper on this one as well. Compression, EQ, cut out a lot of high end on this one. Probably did it to fit in the mix, I would assume. Alright, let's go through the drums then. This is the beat in its entirety. And with the bass, it sounds like... We've got this one sample really, that's just a simple hi-hat. But I want it to be 16th notes, and this is 8th notes, so I thought why not just copy it, but shoot it forward slightly to put it off beat and make it 16th notes. It's kind of this cool pattern of 2 emphasized syncopations followed by softer hitting notes. So I think that adds a bit to the percussion. We've also got this thing. Yeah, that's all over the place. You don't really know where it is, but it's a Nexus patch run through step effects in Logic. So it sounds like this. Run through step effects, supercharger, and some EQ. Supercharger is a compression plugin. We've also got this snare rattle sample. Which I'm in love with, and I used it for the snare rolls as well. I'm in love with it, and it just adds so much human element to such a robotic sounding song in some elements. But I chopped it up and made it fit the tempo and everything. I think it had like a BPM of like 120 something when I started with it, and obviously my song is in 90 BPM, so had to fiddle a bit with it, but we got there in the end. I got there through just chopping up the sample and then stretching it like this to kind of land on beat. I also used that snare sound in the sample as one of my actual snares, which is this one. You can kind of hear that it cuts out all the noise, but I thought it was charming. And then we've got this one to back the other snare up. More of a traditional trap snare. We've also got 2 different kicks. As usual, I layer my shit. One deep and one more high-end heavy. These have also got transient shapers on them. They're in a bus on their own actually, with a transient shaper boosting that initial transient to get some more punch into the kick. Then we've got this weird thing that's kind of goes well together with the Darbuka Live. And this is just a snare processed and bounced out with some timeless delay on it. EQ, cymatics memory to mess it up a bit, and timeless with a diffused and choppy delay. Then we've also got some hits to emphasize the downbeat way in the background, and some reverses, I assume. Yeah, so that is essentially the drums. As usual, we've got a drum buzz. I've covered this before, but for those who haven't watched those videos, it's ozone, equalizer, and supercharger to add that punch, UAD Pultec to boost certain frequencies, heat wave for some saturation, filter freak, mix loudener setting to pick certain frequencies and make them louder to make it stand out in the mix. a drum buzz, EQ, controls, mud, and some compression. We've also got some sends to a decapitator, adding that distortion on a separate buzz. We've got a fun reverb that emulates other sounds. So you put one sound in, it kind of emulates that through, I don't know, AI, and puts that on your sound. So you can like emulate the reverb of whales or the ocean or something crazy like that. And a mix loudener on the send as well. All right, moving on. We've got these synths that bring a lot of the chordal information. And since there's only 2 chords, what happens here is you get some chordal information from the main loop. But where you get most of your chordal information is the bass actually. And even though it's only playing one note at a time and staying on one note, the human ear perceives chords in relation to the lowest note. So whatever your lowest note is kind of determines what you base the rest of the notes you're hearing on. That's why bass players have such an enormous power in live bands, for example, because if they switch one note, the entire perception of the chord that's being played together can change. And that's kind of what's happening here. Yeah, so that's cool. There's some different patches here. One Analog Lab 5, I recommend this one. Has a lot of cool sounds. This specific one is Haruto's Mystic Splits, apparently. And it's put on a binaural panner, panned to the back for more of that back sound. And a funny thing here actually is that I intended for it to play all 3 notes at the same time, but like midway through producing and mixing, I realized that it was only playing 1 note at a time. But I left it like this because it makes this offset and onset more beautiful, I think. You can kind of hear it going down at the end, whereas if I took away these 2, you wouldn't hear that. Which I thought sounded way more beautiful. We've got a EQ on this for mixing purposes, format shift for effect purposes. I apparently removed a tremolo. That was kind of cool, but okay. A compressor as well to even it out. Next patch is also from Analog Lab. Low synth brass, and this apostrophe means that I've switched out some settings here. Sounds like this. Yeah, I needed to cut out a lot of low end because that would have clashed with everything else. Next patch, also Analog Lab. Wow. Astral Voices. Oh, that's kind of off pitch a little bit. It's kind of detuned a little bit, but that's cool. That's cool. Just some EQ on this one. Cool. And then they're in a sum by them in their own right. Yeah, just gluing it all together so that they sound coherent. Cool. We've also got this small detail thing that I added when I did the drums, I think. It just adds some sparkle to the drums, I think. Just something in the background. Is this Nexus? Yeah. Bell pad, and then the new Chroma Glow plugin. That's fun. It's a very cool saturation or distortion plugin, depending on how you use it. And some Realm, of course, with binaural panning to the front. Actually, that's cool. That's fun. And I picked the spherical setting as well to make it even more spacey. Let's see, in the pre-chorus we've also got these chordal pads here, but it's just bounced out. And processed a bit, not clash with everything that's happening there in the pre-chorus.
Fort Knox, when I switch up the flow, I let them know I'm the new Russ, I know how to do it all. Don't let my pop tracks fool ya, in the rap game I'll school ya. You don't have the same fuel though, yeah, I'm not even through with ya. Oh, would you mind if I pop?
Okay, cool. We've forgotten one very important part of this song, and it's my voice in the background. So originally I recorded this vocal over the original sample. It sounds like this. And that's fun. It's with some auto-tune as well. And then chopped it up to sound like this. Kind of wanted to go with this East Asian vibe sort of thing, and then I put a ton of effects on it. Like, yeah, you can see here, it's absurd really, but yeah, let's run through it. It's fun. I've saved this as a vocal chain because yeah, I'm in love with the sound really. It sounds like this together. Yeah, it's just beautiful in my opinion. So, original thing just had a normal vocal chain on it that you would put on any normal backing vocal, like EQ, compressors, some fresh air, maybe some multiband, whatever, maybe a bit of reverb, but maybe not, and auto-tune. Then I added some reverb and EQ afterwards on this one, but this is bounced out as well. And so I took this one essentially, copied it, and threw more auto-tune on it because I wanted to make sure that it really hit those notes. Took out more low end, put little altar boy on it. That is what makes it sound so high pitched. You can see here the pitch is turned up and the format shift a bit, and then some drive and mixed very wet so that you don't hear my original voice that much. Then put some vinyl on it. It's a free plugin from Isotope. It's great. It makes it sound more old, but in this instance I put it to 2000, the year, because I didn't want it to sound that old. A lot of these effects like make tiny changes that make one unique sound. Kilohertz phaser, again free plugin, great. OTT, free, great multiband upwards downwards compressor. You got to be careful with this one though, like it's very powerful. Sharpens it, I think is the best way to describe it. Heatwave, saturation, Develock, sound toys, that is what adds this crunch really. Without it, it sounds like this, and with it, it sounds like this. It's just, yeah, it adds crunch like crazy. Platinum Verb, great reverb. Realm, and then some EQ cutting up of some high end because that crunch really kicked it into 12th gear. and then some ozone imaging to make it more spacey. And then I thought I would have phasing issues, but don't really have it because of the format shift that I pulled off here in Little Alter Boy, and the pitch difference. So we're good on the phasing issues since it is the exact same bounce. Then I took this and reversed it and put it into other parts of the song. So that's what you hear in the beginning. Yeah. Then before we go through the main vocals, we should also go through some ad-libs. It's just me saying yeah. Yeah. With my vocal chain plus a lot of dumb shit on it to make it sound big and spacey and evil. Yeah. Without it, it sounds like yeah. So yeah. And then some doubles. Key to your log and in your endo. Very ugly, but it's mixed way in the background. It's just to have a, I don't know, subconscious effect of two people singing. Then I took this line from the chorus and put some effects on it and put it way in the background in the verses. Way in the background. Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's go through the vocals then. Here in the chorus, we start off with the chorus right away. Nothing really changes in the vocals because it didn't need to. The only thing that really changes from the first chorus to the last one is the addition of my voice on the vocal ad-lib thing. And that's it, basically. But I think it builds up nicely throughout the verses. Oh, would you mind if I pop off driving a drop top? Cause I don't want a real job. I got the supply and the means to go in, so I'll make the men count them dollars down. So there's a lot of things going on here. It's triple tracked. That means we've got one main vocal that I really wanted to make perfect, so a lot of different takes, and of course flex pitch and everything of that nature, and auto-tune, and making it perfect. Then recording two maybe less perfect takes, panning them left and right and having them lower back in the mix. Pop off driving a drop top cause I don't want a real job. Yep. And I try to experiment with the tonality of my voice. I usually have a more, I don't want to say innocent tonality in my voice, but more innocent. But I try to play around with a more mysterious, if you want to call it, tonality in my voice, and more edgy maybe, because I thought it fit the song better and the message of the song and everything. So my vocal chain has changed a bit. Auto-tune, of course. Pro Q3 with this weird EQ curve. Some de-essing, some compression, more EQ, more compression. I really like the studio vocal preset, and then you just fiddle with it a bit to fit the mix. More serial compression, some multi-band. This is more added towards the end in the mixing phase. Some fresher, same here. This one really lacked a lot of high end, and I could just push it like crazy without it ruining the mix really, so that was cool. Normally, like, you got to be more careful with multi-band that looks like this and a fresher that looks like this. This is a bit crazy. It worked in this mix, and so like at the end of the day, if it sounds good, it doesn't really matter how you got there. It's just how it sounds, and that's what matters, I think. Reverb from Kilohertz, reverb from FabFilter, reverb from Realm, and Timeless. This is the delay you're hearing. So for example, here you can see what is bypassed and not in the delay. So you can hear the O here in the beginning has a delay on it. Oh, would you mind if I... So you can hear the oh, oh.
Oh, would you mind if I pop off driving a drive?
And the rest just has reverb on it, and then again the delay is bypassed.
Down this town, if not by my.
And then we just have one word instead of me having the whole thing be delayed.
Would you mind if I pop off driving a drop? Cause I
That doesn't sound good, but every once in a while it's nice to have a delay.
in this game.
Yeah. So if you ever wondered how to do that, just put a delay you like on there, and when it says bypassed, it's turned off basically, so it won't react to the signal, which is the vocal. But when it's not bypassed down here, it will do the delay.
Oh, would you mind if I pop off driving?
So yeah, that's what I did for the main vocal. I didn't do it on the panned vocals because that was a bit overkill, I thought. Then I decided to do a single vocal for the verse. I don't usually do that, but it fit this song because it's a rap song and you really want to focus on the words, and having one vocal as opposed to 3 vocals panned left, right and center makes it more vulnerable in one sense. So yeah, I really wanted the listener to hear the words, and so I try to be as clear as possible when I was rapping, as well as processing it in a way where you can hear the words.
Much time passed between my releases. Gotta figure out what my rhyme scheme is. Now I don't ever wanna be put into a box unless you call me Pandora. Labels be shaking and the boots filled with horror, cause they know I do it on my own. Rap, produce, mix, master all alone. They be screaming Leo got his game up. Leo's not.
I mean, the vocal chain is basically very similar to the chorus. It's just a bit less reverb, no delay, a bit more distortion on a buzz with the capitator, a bit more saturation on the IVGI2 from Klanghelm on a separate send. That's basically what's different. It's recorded on the same mic and everything, so it's recorded on this mic actually. Austrian Audio OC18, I believe, if you're curious. This thing, it's a beat break. It's what's called a beat break. I love these. I love making them because it changes up the pace of the song and gives you a nice break from the kind of repetitive just rapping and rhyming.
They know I do it on my own. Rap, produce, mix, master all alone. They be screaming Leo got his.
So what I usually do when I produce this is I have the beat, right? I have this beat that's, you know, kind of gets a bit repetitive after a while. And I just pick a spot in the song and slice everything, click Control M, just mute all of it like this, and then like that. Yeah, just mute it all and play some more effects on here. So in this instance, I brought these things in. And that kind of builds up to the downbeat, which I then add in another element, which is this rattle thing that adds a different element. And I also switch up the flow, kind of go into a more melodic line of rapping.
Produce, mix, master all alone. Yeah, they be screaming Leo got his game up. Leo's not the same cause ego is inflated. Yeah, Leo.
Like in this part, there's so much more energy than in the beginning here.
And it's good to switch up the genre like I'm a first responder to a crime scene. But I can't let too much time pass between my real.
Like it's kind of mellow and like edgy and oh, I don't really care that much. But here it's like a lot of energy and I do care and like listen to the words I'm saying, right? So it's good to switch it up, and if you don't have a lot of instrumental changes in a song, I try to like differentiate it through the composing side and switching it up like this with new elements that really adds a lot, or in the melody doing some more melodic rapping, beat breaks and everything, then switch it up again before the chorus hits.
Like it's Fort Knox, but when I switch up the flow, I let them know I'm the new Russ. I know how to do it all. Don't let
risers like this emphasize that we're going into a new section. The chorus works, I think, because it's so different from the verses. It's very melodic, and it's almost singing, but it's almost rapping, and the verses are really just straight rapping, I feel like. Mixing this was kind of difficult because I wanted to place this sample in a wide spectrum and for you to be able to hear it all the time, but I also wanted to emphasize the words I was saying a lot. I had to find a balance there, but we got there in the end, I think. Anyways, mastering this, here's my mastering chain for this one. OTT, some parallel compression, multiband. One of them, I mean both of them are a lot of compression and EQ at the same time, but one is more punch and leveling, another one is more equalizing everything. Here is a almost pointless equalizer, but it's makes some final touches. Same with this fresh air, just some final extra few touches in the high end. This one is very important. It's a de-esser, but it's set to a high-end transient limiting mode if we play it and only listen to the audition. So everything you're hearing now, that's what it's removing from the song. So it's only these two bright parts and these two sharp parts. So it's basically taking out everything from the song that would be jarring to listen to. Then a limiter to place less stress on the mastering chain. Then a expander to kind of make up for some of the lost frequencies in the limiting. Then a mastering chain, Logic's own one with like minimal things on it. Then a U-lean loudness meter just for monitoring purposes. That's it, I think. Yeah. Okay, that was a long breakdown. Thank you for watching so much. Again, if you want to listen to the song, share it, save it. I'd appreciate it a lot. More music is on the way. As I said, all of my music that I'm releasing at the moment is part of a album that is going to be called Half Truths. Keep a lookout, subscribe if you haven't, and yeah, make sure to catch the next breakdown of my next song. See you then.